Hello, welcome to a broadcast produced by Friends of Terry Virgil. I'm Terry Virgil, your host, and today's episode is minimum wage. Well, let's take a very good look at this question about minimum wage. It's a pretty heated debate in the election, by the way. Matter of fact, let's take a very good look at minimum wage actually in a whole and where it first began. Actually, here in the United States, it happened to begin in the 1930s underneath a very liberal Democrat by the name of Franklin Roosevelt. And the liberals that were in charge of Congress at the time. So that's what minimum wage really began here in the 1930s. But let's go backwards a little bit even further. Did you know that there was a minimum wage even as far back as Christ? That's right. Minimum wage was a wage that was even done during the time of Christ. And the one government that set up minimum wage at that time was the Roman Empire. Well, it gave you a little history. It even goes back even farther, but I can't exactly pinpoint a date down to when it kind of first began and kind of basic idea. When we take a look at minimum wage here in the United States of America, seems to me like inflation goes up every time we raise minimum wage to double-digit figures. This time, I'm going to say it's going to go up as high as triple-digit figures. And you're going to have unemployment rate as high as 80%. Interesting how when you want a $15 an hour minimum wage to be put in effect, how much it could snowball. On both coasts, in New York and in California, they want to have the minimum wage at $15 an hour. Now, I happen to know for a fact that, believe it or not, that's Marxism. It's also socialism. It's also, well, Marxism is communism, so it comes from that idea. And we can say that inflation is the key factor to it. And people getting tired of working their tails off and getting nothing. Well, here's the thing of it is, too. Now, the European Union says minimum wage should be $18 an hour, which it is. Now, here's a very unique factor that the liberals and Democrats and the communists and socialists don't bring up. What is the unemployment rate and what is the rate of inflation over there? Here's a good answer. In unemployment, it is up to 40% in some areas. I didn't say all areas. In cases of high inflation, it's getting close to triple figures. Price of, let's say for example, if you want to buy a gallon of milk in some areas, it will cost you approximately $15 per gallon. Doesn't that sound like high inflation to you? And if you're good in economics, you can see where I'm coming from here. The other point of economics is California can have their minimum wage raised, so can New York. Well, does that leave the rest of the country? Well, I happen to be a business owner myself and a businessman. And some say I'm pretty smart in economics, and some people say, well, we don't like your economics, but I don't care if they like it or not. That's not the point. The point is, now, providing a service as I do, I would have to raise my cost to fix the price so that those who would work for me can get a fair wage. But by doing so, I'd have to look at how I would have to fix the cost. Personally, I'd have to say, you're fired. End of sentence. You don't get any unemployment, you don't go past go, and you don't get any benefits. End of sentence. Now, as a fair-minded man, I sure would hate to fire people over the fact that minimum wage went up in California and is up in New York State up at $15 an hour. Let's put it this way. In a lot of ways, I do care about those who would work for me and who don't work for me. For example, I'd like to see them own a home. I'd like to see them own a car. I'd like to see them put food on the table. I'd like to see them provide their own health insurance, their own life insurance, which I do not provide health insurance for, but because you can't afford it, you just can't afford it. They're on their own. But anyways, that's besides the point. Anyways, minimum wage is a thing that's going to have to happen. Here's one thing I learned today. Headquarters, McDonald's, United States of America, did state this. This came right out of headquarters, McDonald's, that they're going to have to raise the price of a hamburger all across in each and every location, each and every state, just to meet the cost of providing one job for one person at $15 an hour. And I will say it again. Headquarters McDonald's has said that they're going to have to raise the price of the hamburger by about maybe $15 in order to, across America, in order to provide $15 an hour wage to one employee. That's $15 per hamburger. That does not include the pickle. That does not include the bun or the ketchup and mustard. That's the hamburger. Now, you're going to have to pay that, people. Even if your state doesn't have $15 an hour, they're not going to justify the wages across America according to where their location is. Matter of fact, I am going to say this much, and I've been looking at this today, and I've been studying it pretty good, that there are companies out in California that are about ready to leave California because of the $15 an hour minimum wage. So, what does that tell you? Governor Jerry Brown is an idiot or is a genius? You take the pick. I think you could do the math. He's an idiot. A moron, actually. But if you take a look at $15 an hour, and prior to this law in California, there were companies that, there were cities like Los Angeles that did raise the minimum wage up to $15 an hour, and now they had to cut services. They had to cut services because they cannot afford the $15 an hour wage that would hire more people. They have to keep one person to do the same amount of work as four. You see the point? I like to see people make a fairly decent wage, and don't get me wrong on that one. I think $15 an hour, if you are qualified to do the work at $15 an hour, is adequate. That's not the point here. The point here is, if you're just coming out of high school, how can you prove yourself to be worth $15 an hour? Why would I want to hire you for $15 an hour? Ask yourself that question. Ask yourself another question. Why is it that the liberals and Democrats, yes, the labor unions are liberals and Democrats mostly, or 99.9% of them, of the people that are working for them, And yes, 99.9% of them we would say belong in the category of either Marxism or socialism with those ideas. They say, well, we got to have minimum wage up to $15 an hour so that people could have a decent living and a decent way to live in order to support themselves. Okay, like I said, I'm in favor of a good fair wage. That I am. But you got to show why you need it. The labor unions, all they want to do is get your money, so they could become rich, so they could become the socialistic, Marxist rulers of the United States of America, so that they could prove that they're better than what we call a republic. Well, let me give you a little bit of history. 1917, a labor union took over Russia. In 1949, a labor union took over China. 1948, a labor union took over North Korea. 1960, a labor union took over Cuba. 1975, a labor union took over Vietnam. Need I say any more? A labor union is no more than a Marxist organization that believes in full communism. End of sentence. And if you think I never worked in a labor union, well, guess what? You're wrong. I've worked for 3. Why am I saying it the way I am right now? Because I saw the communistic ideas when I was working there. I was ridiculed for voting for a conservative. Some people even ridiculed me for voting for, believe it or not, libertarians. Matter of fact, I was even told and threatened not to vote for libertarians by these labor unions. Matter of fact, you know what they said? We'd rather have you vote for a Republican. Now, I'm going to say it this much. I'm very comfortable with what I make, and I'm not out to get rich. But if I have to raise my cost by 15% in order to make it go so that I could hire somebody or some more help, then that's what the people out in California did do. That's the ripple effect of California minimum wage of $15 an hour. I've said it before. In other laws that come from California, other stupid laws that come from California, by the way. The bathroom laws that we're coming up with, the dispute over the bathroom, is a stupid laws. Meaningless, actually, if you think about it, but more meaningful than they realize. It's called being a liberal. Being stupid, actually. And I'm not afraid to say stupid. Matter of fact, I've told you this story too about the labor union and the labor union movement. They were surprised at one thing. They were surprised that a conservative could get them a better health insurance package. Because the conservative did the math and did the figures and looked at exactly what can be done. A better one than the liberals could do. And yet it wasn't a mandate to do anything with the health insurance. It wasn't anything that dealt with the terminology must have, must do, or force. None of that. and yet it made sense. It was called common